So you might be wondering, as you come into Overeaters Anonymous, how long does it take to move through the program? If you're wondering how long it takes to move through the program, I'm guessing what you're really asking is how long does it take to recover? I've done a way longer video on this. I will leave the link of it in the video, in the description. Just know that it will navigate you away from this playlist of all the questions I have prepared for you. So you may want to just save this video so that you can come back to it. But the short answer is this. The actual 12 steps of addiction recovery, moving through them, it doesn't take super long, but addiction recovery itself is going to be a little bit subjective on a case-by-case basis. I will give you 2 experiences that I've had to help to illustrate this. First of all, I do want to tell you that the 12 steps of addiction recovery are broken up into like 2 phases of recovery. There's phase 1 and there's phase 2. And let me explain what I mean by that. I'm going to use an analogy. If you wanted to help a hoarder, if you wanted to do an intervention for a hoarder, someone you care about a lot, then probably one of the first things you would do is to show up with a lot of big black trash bags and just start gathering garbage and throwing it out, right? You would work tirelessly until the room and the house was clean and sparkly, and your friend could stand there and feel how good it feels to stay in a clean house. That's phase 1 of recovery. Phase 2 for this intervention for your friend is going to require that hoarder, the person who's going to be coming back and living in that house, begins to understand and practice and implement the skills of daily pickup. So in order for them to continue to live in a clean house, then every day they're going to have to learn the value of washing and putting away dishes, folding and putting away laundry, picking up garbage as it accumulates in order to keep the house clean. That's the same thing that we're doing in addiction recovery. So we have phase 1, which is steps 1 through 9. This is the work we're doing to really focus on the pain that we've been accumulating in our life. Because when we're in our addiction, really we're just in a place where we're looking for emotional and spiritual relief, because we do have an accumulation of pain in our lives that just sends us to a place where we just need relief. This is often in the form of resentments and fears, selfishness and dishonesty in all their various forms, the way we've been collecting them throughout our life. So phase 1, steps 1 through 9, it's really about getting in and cleaning out our house, cleaning out all of those things that have been accumulating over time, those things that we're trying to escape from and run away from. That's what sends us into our addiction. So this is a very, very important phase of addiction recovery. But then we also have to learn the skill of daily pickup. We have to move through a process where we learn and implement skills of daily taking an inventory of our life and recognizing how those things are starting to creep back in. So here we are on the lookout for fear, resentment, selfishness, and dishonesty in all their forms on a daily basis. As they come in, they put us in a place where we are more vulnerable to, again, trying to find an escape hatch to get away from the pain that those emotions bring and moving us back into our addiction. So what we do in the maintenance steps of the 12 steps of addiction recovery, steps 10 and 11 and 12, that is the daily pickup. We look for those things as they come in and we try to get rid of them immediately. That's what we do in step 10. Step 11 is we try to make daily conscious contact with our higher power each day. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. And then step 12 is basically rinse and repeat. You keep doing what you've been doing that's helping you live free of those emotions, and you tell people about it. You share with others the experiences that you're having, and in that way you kind of testify of the miracles that are happening as you make these changes. So that's what the maintenance steps are, 10 and 11 and 12. Those are those daily pickup things that help you live free of the emotional wreckage that could come back in and sending you back into your addiction. So let me give you a little bit more of an example of how those work through your life. And the reason it's important to know is because when you want to know how long does it take to get through the 12 steps of addiction recovery, not very long. You can actually do them quite quickly in a couple weeks. But how long does it take to recover? Well, for me, my recovery, it happened as I lived in 10 and 11 and 12 for a period of time. Like I said, I'll give you 2 examples from my own life that illustrate that. But for just this one more moment, I want to explain to you again 10 and 11 and 12 and the way that they work together to help you have that daily pickup experience. Step 10, imagine, like step 10 and 11, they kind of go together. Both of those are really centered on the relationship that you are building with your higher power. But they're 2 sides of the same coin. Think about your closest friend. Your very closest friend is probably the person that you have both the shortest conversations with and the longest conversations. It's the person you have the silliest conversations with and the ones that mean the most. For example, maybe you'll call and say, hey, I only have a minute, but I have to tell you this joke I heard. Or maybe you'll say, hey, my husband's leaving me and I need someone to hold me and I need someone to talk to. Or you might say, hey, it's a Friday, I'm free, let's get together and hang out. All those kinds of different conversations are the kinds of conversations you're going to have with your closest friend, both the longest conversations and the shortest conversations. So in step 10, what we're doing is when we find ourselves in that place of emotional dysregulation, when we find ourselves in a place of crisis and in a place where we need help, we can make that quick call to our higher power and say, I need help. Please take this feeling away. It's challenging my peace. It's taking away my joy. I'm not feeling safe. Please take these feelings away from me and help me navigate this situation. That's step 10, and we can experience and have the miracle of that calm come into our life in real time. Step 11 is the other side of that coin. What are the conversations you're having with your higher power on purpose on a daily basis when you are calm? You're going to have different conversations with your best friend when you are on the side of the road with a flat tire versus it being Friday night and you're just looking for someone to hang out with. Step 11 is about the effort we put into building our relationship with our higher power when we are at peace, when we are calm, and just using our higher power as a resource to help us to just deepen the value of our whole life. As we institute both sides of that coin, they really kind of feed into each other. It's hard to trust someone you don't know. But as you spend that time with your higher power on step 11 and building that conscious contact and having those God moments where you feel like someone is on the other side of what you're saying or asking or putting out there in the universe, those are such amazing experiences. And it's really easy to go back to that person, to that higher power, when we are in a time of crisis. If we've built a relationship of trust here, then when we're in a place where we need help, it's easier to call someone we already trust. And similarly, when we're on the side of the road with a flat tire and we call that friend to come help us, and they do, it's going to be easier to call on them the next time. And maybe we're going to want to lean more into having a more intimate relationship with them. So similarly, when we're in a place of emotional dysregulation, emotional or spiritual crisis, and we recognize that and invite our higher power to come in to help us with that, then we find ourselves in a place where it's a lot easier, like as we have that experience of relief in real time, it's a whole lot easier to also want to lean more into that relationship with our higher power when we're in a place of calm, to ask him to be with us and get counsel from him on other things too. Those really go hand in hand with each other, and that's what helps us to live free of that emotional dysregulation that could lead us into our addiction. So now, like I said, I'll give you 2 experiences from my own life. So I have had both what I'll say a miraculous recovery and one that took a little bit longer. How long does it take to recover? Well, let me tell you my 2 experiences. And these are not the only 2 experiences I've had, but the ones as they've come up in my last, because I started OA, Overeaters Anonymous. I first was introduced to the program over 15 years ago, tried and failed, gave up for a long time, finally hit my very last rock bottom almost 4 years ago now, where I was suicidal and needed help again. And somebody said, hey, just go back to OA one more final time. And I was like, life or death, okay, I guess I gotta go and let someone police my food, take away my sugar, and trigger me in 1,000 ways. But whatever, I'm willing to do it. And I went back into the program. I started working with a sponsor, and that sponsor, first and foremost, she was like, hey, I'm not going to police your food, by the way. I don't care about your food. I just care about what you're doing with the steps, but we will keep an open line of communication about your eating, because it's how you eat, not necessarily what you eat. Anyway, you can find that information in one of these other videos in the description below. But anyway, I got to a place where I was, we started our relationship, and I was like, okay, well then I'm going to white knuckle my way through this, but I'm not going to white knuckle my way through the sugar, but I will white knuckle my way through trying not to overeat. So for 3 days, I tried really, really hard to understand my body's signals when I was hungry and all of those things, and it was hard. It was really hard. And it was hard for 3 days. And then on day 4, I was like, something has lifted from me. Like, I only want to eat when I'm hungry. And it was miraculous and amazing and beautiful. And it was like, I was so grateful. I cried with gratitude for several days. I mean, I would just think about it and be emotional. I went to meetings so I could tell people about this miracle, and it was awesome. Well, during that time, my sponsor and I, we had a lot of scheduling conflicts and could no longer work together. So we stopped working together, and I thought, well, I probably need to find another sponsor, but let me just take my time. And so in that space, after it had been, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks of having that miraculous food neutrality, that's what we refer to it as in Overeaters Anonymous, food neutrality, meaning you don't feel crazy around food, you just kind of can regard it as a normal eater. I started to lose it, and that scared me a little bit. But as I found a new sponsor, I thought, okay, it's not a big deal. What is it, like 3 days? 3 days of white knuckling, and then I'll get it back. Not a big deal. So I started my new relationship with that sponsor, and I'm like, okay, just as soon as I'm ready to do those 3 days, that's it. Then I'm ready. But I was already in that last meal mentality. The last thing I wanted to do was to give up the food again. I thought, because I thought it won't be a big deal. It's just 3 days. And also it was like, well, then, I can take my time. I can take my time and enjoy the binging for just a little bit longer. So I meant to give up the food. I never did. I never did. I never did. Um, it has been taken from me though, but I never gave it up. I never white knuckled my way through one more single day of my life. That was almost 4 years ago. That was a long time ago. Or no, I guess that was 3 years ago now. And so I haven't white knuckled my way through another day of my life. Not since then. I tried, I meant to, I intended to, I was gonna, and I just never did. And through that space, what ended up happening is I was moving through the food experience. I was like binging and misusing food at the same time that I was trying very hard to also work the 12 steps of addiction recovery. So at that point, I had already gone through steps 1 through 9 and done that deep cleaning and gotten rid of all of the emotional accumulation I had been holding over time. And I was now moving into steps 10 and 11 and 12, trying to find the emotional dysregulation as it came into my life in real time, at least to the best of my ability. Because at the time, nobody explained it to me the way that I'm explaining it to you now. So I just did 10 and 11 and 12 the best of my ability. And somewhere in there, I had those Helen Keller moments, I'll say. And that's where I referred to realizing how the steps were working in my life in real time and how I could use step 10 for relief from cravings, and step 11 for relief from cravings, and step 12 for relief from my cravings. And as I dialed that in and saw how it was working, things started to really click for me. And like I said, I didn't have someone to explain it to me the way I'm explaining it to you. So a lot of this I kind of had to figure out. I was working with sponsors who weren't recovered. I worked with 4 sponsors over about 18 months. None of them recovered. I didn't realize it at the time. Some of them very obviously weren't recovered, but there was one in particular I strongly suspect she wasn't, for 2 reasons. One, she was pushing me to sponsor before I was recovered and told me I had to sponsor in order to recover. And the other reason, I don't think she was recovered, or any of them, was because after the fact, once I found recovery, and there were so many things I understood and learned through the process of recovery, I just thought, how come nobody told me this? And I realized they don't know. They don't know. So how long did it take for me to recover? Well, I had that miraculous thing after 3 days of white knuckling. Didn't stick. But then I found recovery through moving through this process and discovering what did and didn't work in real time until it got dialed into the most beautiful, peaceful, organic recovery thing. And it's amazing because when it happened miraculously, I didn't know why it happened. I didn't know how to keep it. All I knew was that it had happened and I was grateful and it was awesome. But now, having gone through it this time, now that second time, it took me about 10 months. But like I said, I didn't have anyone to help me understand it the way that I'm trying to describe it to you, and to help you to know how to implement these tools and the steps and the differences, all of the things that you see down here in the description, all these videos I've made to answer questions for you. I didn't have anybody to explain it to me this way. And so it took me 10 months as I learned through trial and error and figuring things out, and was blessed to find different resources and different people who could share different perspectives with me. Hopefully it won't take you so long, but that's how long it took me, was that 10 months. But I will also say that during that 10 months, that whole time, I was doing step 10 and 11 and 12, and that's where the magic happened. And I have to say, I'm telling you it took me 10 months to recover, but I'm only specifically referring to 10 months to again experience food neutrality. But let me tell you a different perspective. Throughout that whole 10 months, I was healing, and there were so many miracles that weren't victories on the scale. I learned how to use my higher power to feel better in real time. I learned things about myself I hadn't understood as I went through that process of trying to ask, where am I being selfish? Where am I being fearful? And all of those things, my higher power tutored me and showed me where I was. I realized that I was a chronic people pleaser, and that was actually really selfish of me and based in fear and selfishness and dishonesty, and caused a lot of resentment in my life. As I learned those and other things, I was able to do things different. My life changed, my relationships changed, my anxiety, my chronic anxiety that I had been living with for years, decades, melted away. Like there were so many things happening in my life before the food neutrality came. So I believe that that series of months that I went through was a process of all of those deep emotional dysregulations unraveling and healing so that I could then move very naturally and peacefully into a place where I no longer depended on food the way that I used to. So for me, it was 10 months as I struggled to figure things out. I did have sponsors during that time, but like I said, they weren't recovered, and so they helped me as far as they could help me. But there were so many things they too did not yet understand. And so my hope in sharing this with you is that maybe it will shortcut your process a little bit. But like I said, the 12 steps themselves you can do pretty quickly. You can get through steps 1 through 9 in a matter of weeks, days even, if you wanted to. And then 10 and 11 and 12, that's that daily pickup practice that you'll just continue for the rest of your life. I hope that's helpful to you. I will just say that the faster you can dial in how to use your higher power in a way to help you find that emotional relief in the moments that you need it, that's really what's going to set the pace and the trajectory of your recovery. It's not about how quickly you can manage and figure out how to wrestle the food out of your life. In fact, in my opinion, the more time you spend there trying to wrestle with food, the longer it will take you to recover because you're splitting your energy across 2 areas. It's much better to take all of your energy and invest it into dialing in these practices of 10 and 11 and 12 so that the food will just naturally unravel itself. It's kind of like when you try to teach a 2-year-old to read. Maybe they will learn a few 3-letter words over time, but if you just wait until their brain is ready to read, they will take off and it will go so fast. So the same kind of thing. If you just choose to spend your time dialing in how to invite your higher power into that space to help you calm, the food recovery will take care of itself in its own time, and it will be a natural, sweet experience. It will be a natural byproduct of these other things that you're doing because you're going to be ready for it. So I hope that helps, and yeah, go ahead and look in the description down below to see to find the next video that you would like to watch to answer your next question.